Hi, and welcome to the Law Simplified. I'm Shaveen Bandad-Nayaka. The difference between a student that fails an examination and one that passes it is the knowledge that particular student has on the subject matter. The difference between a mediocre student and one that is good at attempting examination questions is the way in which they apply the law. But oftentimes, the difference between a good student and a great one is how convinced they are of their arguments, and more importantly, how they are able to showcase to an examiner their legal personality. Now, over the past several years, I've had the opportunity of conducting fast-track and masterclass programs for students from all around the world. As a byproduct of this, I've been able to gain access to the psyche and mindsets of students who've excelled and succeeded not just in their first degrees, such as an LLB or a GDL qualification, but also at much higher levels of academia, such as LLM and PhDs as well. Having provided comprehensive feedback reports for these students, it's clear that the majority of those who have succeeded in their law degree and moved on to fruitful careers have been able to do so not because of the knowledge that they have, rather the ability to supplement that knowledge with conviction and with arguments that showcase to an examiner their personality. Now, this is far much easier said than done, and it comes from practice, and it comes from developing a technique, so to speak, that is unique to yourself. Many students often tend to be afraid of having conviction of responses and essentially feeling or emphasizing bias, so to speak, in one area as opposed to the other, thinking that an examiner will adversely impact them in terms of their grades. But the reality, and I've said this on a number of occasions on this very YouTube channel as well as the different platforms that the Law Simplified is disseminated on, is that the examiner doesn't care as much about what you know or even your opinion, but the fact that you have a particular process of thinking, a method to your madness, so to speak. Now, having gone through thousands of scripts over the past several years, I've been able to quantify the general gist, so to speak, of how successful students tend to present their arguments and how they showcase their legal personality. On the one hand, you have the argumentative student. This is a student that presents a personality which is quite strong and direct. In fact, I often recognize these students as having a strong sense of conviction. They are quite biased towards one particular individual, in which case they are advising someone in a problem-based scenario, or a particular argument or a particular point of view when it comes to an essay question. But the noticeable and unique characteristic of these types of students is the notion that they tend to weed out anything disadvantageous and take whatever is beneficial to their argument. This might be substantiated by precedent case law, by statute, and even journal articles. But whatever resources they use, their personality indicates to an examiner that they have picked a side and that they're fighting for it. This sense of conviction is something that provides them with an advantage in terms of other students who might essentially be on the fence about making a decision as to which way to go about. And it's this conviction that creates the parameter for their personality, for their legal personality at that. On the other hand, you have the pragmatic student. The pragmatic student is someone who is not essentially indifferent to the arguments, rather is willing to hear out the other side as well. So for instance, in a feedback report that I may provide to a masterclass or a fast-track student, the response that they have provided may indicate a pragmatic personality where the arguments sway both ways, but on a balance appears to favor one party over the other. Now, personally, from an examiner's point of view, this makes far much better sense than the general argumentative approach, because the argumentative approach might not work in every single situation. Now again, while this may seem theoretical, you have to put it into practice, and this is all about doing more and more questions and attempting responses in different styles as you see fit. The pragmatic student tends to look at the situation and circumstances in a much more broader context. By doing so, the advantage that this student has is that he has open to him a much larger pool of resources, from journals to case law to acts of parliament. Whereas an argumentative student might be tunnel vision in terms of what he or she is going to use, a pragmatic student has the option of looking at everything. Now mind you, there is a fine line between a pragmatic student and a student that's just general about everything, writes everything that he knows and the kitchen sink, so to speak. Whichever type of student and whichever type of legal personality that you choose and you grow into, so to speak, the idea is to have a legal personality in the first place. This is the main aspect that determines the success or failure of yourself as a law student in your academics and then in your later career as well. Implementing one of these techniques, or for that matter any other niche in terms of techniques of a legal personality at that, would not only show the examiner that you've gone above and beyond in trying to make more out of the scenarios or the essays or the problems that are presented to you, but it will also aid you in your later career as well. Right. This was a quick video to outline something somewhat in the abstract that I mentioned to my fast track and masterclass students, and I was asked quite recently to elaborate on it. Whenever I provide feedback reports to my students, I tend to, on some occasions, include a line that suggests that I cannot hear your voice in the response. And what I mean by this is the fact that there is no legal personality that is seen within the response. It's merely a collection of information and knowledge, case law, acts and journal articles that suggests to me that you know what you're talking about, but it doesn't have much to do with independent thinking. So whenever you're writing an answer script, make sure that you have this understanding that an examiner wants to see you through your words, wants to see that you have a unique personality, a legal one at that, and the knowledge that you have and the arguments that you're presenting is a substantiation of it. But having said that, until the next time that we meet, have fun, stay safe, and as always, obey the law.